Morning of day 5. That's what I woke up to. Gunfire across the street at Mrs. Robinson's house. Scared the shit out of me. I flung myself out of bed, grabbed my 12 gauge, and headed out the door. I walked it over to Mitch. He heard the shots too. He grabbed his 20 gauge, and we made our way outside. We immediately saw 2 marauders come running out of Mrs. Robinson's house, opening fire on us as they saw us. Mitch took cover behind his car and opened fire on them. I hid behind a tree in my front yard and started firing at them. There was gunfire going back and forth. Mitch had injured one of the marauders and he fell to the ground, but he wasn't dead. I returned fire. Mrs. Robinson had run out at the same time. I didn't even pay attention and seen her. Another marauder came from around the back of the house. He was opening fire as well. Just then there was another marauder who had stayed by the front door. And the next thing you know, I heard a gunshot go off. His head was blown off. I quickly looked over and saw that it was Mariah who had used the .22 mag and used it to scope and shoot him in the head, killing him instantaneously. Holy shit. I can't believe this is happening. It happened so fast. I didn't know what to do. We continued to shoot and have gunfire. I injured one of the other marauders. He went to the ground. The other marauder that Mitch had shot had got up and ran away and took off. We couldn't find him. But the one that I had hit was down in the middle of the street. He had dropped his gun and was lying there bleeding. There was no more gunfire. I told Mariah to hang back her house and keep an eye on things. Lenny piped in and said he would do the same. Mitch and I went over to the marauder who was in the streets and looked at him as he was laughing at us, as blood was spurting out of his mouth. I pointed my 12 gauge right at him and said, "Who are you? What do you want?" He began to laugh at me and said, "You don't know what's coming, do you? You have no idea, do you? Where there is one, there is more. More of us are coming." Without even giving it a second thought, I loaded another round in the chamber and blew his head off. Mitch was in shock. He couldn't believe I just did that. I was angry. I couldn't believe this was happening. I'm still not feeling well from our attack, from the marauders, from the day before. I just did what I had to do and ended it. Mariah and Gwen came running over to ask what happened and asked if we were okay. I didn't respond. I was just in a state of shock. And in the midst of all the commotion and chaos, we looked over and we saw Mrs. Robinson dead in her front driveway. She had been killed during the gunfire, most likely from the marauders. We had not hit her when we were exchanging gunfire. Didn't even get a chance to ask her what happened. That could explain the broken glass and what had happened the night before. We all met in the middle of the street. We had to figure out what we're going to do next. I said, well, we can't leave a dead body of a marauder and a dead neighbor in the middle of the road. We have to bury them. So Mitch and I grabbed a couple shovels, went to the back of Mrs. Robinson's house, dug 2 shallow graves, buried the one marauder in the one and Mrs. Robinson in the next. The marauder had a .22 LR hand pistol. It really wasn't a gun that could have done much. It was like my .22 LR that Molly had. But I took it from him anyway. Figured it would be better to have that kind of gun with the ammo that I had stashed for it. We then decided to go through Mrs. Robinson's home. We made our way inside and found that the back windows were broken. Her place was trashed. She had probably been ransacked the night before, which is why we heard all the commotion. They probably broke in to try to steal her food and steal whatever belongings she had. We decided at that point we would go through what she had for any kind of food, supplies, and we'd divide it 4 ways, which we did so. I was in complete shock still. I didn't utter much. Molly could see that I was shaking visibly. We returned back to our homes. Our plan for the day was supposed to be to decide what we were going to do to protect our home and our neighborhood. Well, that wasn't going to happen. I told everyone we need to just stay in and ride it through today. I told them I needed to go lay down. I wasn't feeling good. I was still under a lot of stress from what had happened, and my head still bothered me. They all rocking me back and said, take your time, take your rest that you need. We'll reconvene tomorrow. If anything comes up, we'll let you know. Molly and I went inside. I laid back down. I had one of my hand radios. We began to talk about just certain things, random things. I began to babble. And then Molly said, what's the matter? I said, I don't know, I'm rambling. I'm not making sense of much. She told me to be quiet. Just relax. Rest. Just as she'd done so, everything changed with the message that came across our radio.
Office of Civil Defense at 3:40 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. NORAD detected a long-range nuclear missile launch in North Korea. This missile is believed to be headed in the direction of the Los Angeles metropolitan area. It is believed that it will impact this area within the next 1.5 to 2 hours. All residents within a 400-mile radius of this area should seek a fallout shelter immediately. Fallout is a product of nuclear attacks. Prolonged exposure to fallout will result in certain death. Fallout spreads across large areas approximately 1 minute after impact. If you cannot find a fallout shelter in your area, local authorities will lead you to one. Take a battery-powered radio and all essential supplies with you to the fallout shelter. Tune to 770 AM on your radio for emergency information while in the fallout shelter. Sheltering in place is not advised, as your survival cannot be ensured in that scenario. President Obama will be speaking on all television and radio stations shortly. All television and radio stations in the United States will now cease their regular programming to carry this special message from the President and to report on the news of this incident.
How could that be? How could that be? It must have been that there's parts of the country that weren't affected 100% by the EMP. We weren't going to be able to hear the President's message. We'd be lucky if it came through our radio. So there were parts of the country that didn't get all the attack. This was not good. This was not good at all. I was getting ready to break down. I just couldn't take it. I collapsed under the stress and passed out. Tomorrow began a new journey and a new way for us to go forward.